Hey, welcome to this segment. We just saw Creed, and we're going to give our review of the movie. Kevan here has a background in acting and making movies, and I have a background in journalism, so we're going to say what we thought about it. Kevan, what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was great. Yeah, very good. You know, it's nice to see the this particular film carried on the whole Rocky thing without being ridiculous. You know, because you're always going to be a little nervous. You're bringing in basically a new bloodline, Creed, Apollo Creed. As child, and it was very easy to be cliche, but they weren't, and I thought they did a good job with it.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been so easy to at some point, be corny. And I want to we're going to get more into like details, by the way, in just a few minutes. We're going to get into spoilers, but right now we're going to stay spoiler free. So having said that, it would have been so easy for them to have done something that would have been cliche, that would have been corny.
Right.
Sylvester Stallone owned his age in this movie, and he owned his role.
It was perfect. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he cast himself perfectly. I mean, obviously he knows his limitations with his age and everything, and I think it would have been so stupid to have done another Rocky with him in it. Mm-hmm. So to bring in Creed was really a great idea. Mm-hmm. So it allowed him to be around the boxing game without having to actually do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely they kind of changed things up in a lot of ways, but it did hit on those on some of those Rocky points that you get in every movie.
Yeah,
obviously, obviously, they have their small fight, their middle fight. Obviously, this is not even spoilers because it's so obvious. Obviously, he gets knocked down a few times first, and then he works his way harder. But I thought that it was completely its own feel, though, in a way that this could have been the same script, and in fact, without the other Rocky movies existing, this movie could have existed.
No, I agree. It was a movie, and the fact it was part of the Rocky 7 films, I think it is. But it's a standalone movie. If you didn't know anything about the prior Rocky films, it'd still be awesome because they make enough references to it that you would be able to pick that up as you were rolling along. And it was very well done. I mean, from a cinematography standpoint, there were some challenges in it, and
pretty much every, especially the fight scenes.
Well, and they're tough to do. We all know fights. That is one of the hardest pieces to put together. Fight scenes, I got to tell you. I mean, even on my level, but when you have a lot more expertise, you would think it would be less challenging, even though it would be challenging. But there was definitely some I thought errors on there, or.
Yeah, well, and this isn't spoilers to say, and this information's already out there, but one of the fight scenes was a one shot for the whole fight.
Right.
And the camera's, doing pans around and stuff, and it's like one, continuous shot for about 4 or 5 minutes. It was great to watch. I thought that the, it seemed real to a point.
It did.
But having said that, I could tell that there was a lot of computer animation in it, and I wonder how it's going to age.
Well, I think, because we both got an eye for it, I mean, maybe we're noticing it, and perhaps the regular consumer who may not be looking for that would just go along with it. And it's an emotional movie. Did definitely well up a couple of times. There was some very good things that were touched on. The fight scenes were pretty amazing generally.
And even having said that, it was still great to watch. But you remember how, like, when the early 2000s, even computer animation, it didn't have like the proper weight to it. I think they're getting to the point where they're conquering that. They had weight, but like there were certain points where, especially around the edges of the bodies, you could just see that something wasn't quite there, but it was still a great scene to watch. I still liked it, but it did take me out of it a little bit.
Well, I think you can get lost in it, and that's the good thing. And you may not notice that, but obviously when you're subjective like we are, you're going to see it. But really, the fight was intense. The crowd was awesome. They did a great job, and the Englishman in there from Liverpool.
Yeah, and he came prepared too. He wore that to the movie screen, which was the proper jacket to wear.
And Tony Bellews, he's a tough boy, and it's interesting because he's 6'2", and I think he has a 74-inch reach. If you know your boxing and things, 28 wins, I think 25 knockdowns in real life. So pretty tough guy. the thing what was unimpressive is when he actually had his shorts on and he came out. He didn't look like a tough guy compared to some of the other tough guys that they've used.
Now I didn't know who this guy was before I went into the movie, right. And so yeah, for me, having this guy be the big, basically villain in the movie, if you want to call him that, it didn't make a lot of sense to me when you see him, getting ready to fight, because there's no muscle definition. He doesn't have a six-pack. He seems flabby. Now, he did look like a 1920s fighter. It looks like that classic 1920s look. Yeah. But especially comparing him to the Russian guy. What was his name? You mentioned it off camera.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know the Russian guy, Mr. T. Apollo
Dolph
Creed.
Lundgren.
Yeah, Dolph Lundgren. Mr. T. Apollo Creed in the first movie. These guys seemed a lot more imposing.
Yeah, imposing.
Than this guy.
That's a good point. And I think when he was, I know it sounds odd, but when he had his clothes on and he was just very intense, he did a great acting job for a boxer.
Especially for an athlete. I had no idea. I thought he was an actor.
Well, and maybe he does both, obviously, now. But I thought he was very imposing there, but when you actually saw him ready to fight, he didn't look that imposing. And Michael B. Jordan, I mean, he's too pretty to be a boxer. Honestly, if you've had, 15 fights...
I think towards I don't know how much he changed during the filming, but it seemed like his face kind of changed towards the end, and I kind of saw more of Apollo Creed in him, and I did see, but still, if you take, the physique and the power of young Sylvester Stallone in the first movie and Apollo Creed versus each other, and then you matched up these two guys, it's not the same. I'm sorry. Like, he even...
they're not heavyweights. So
that was like, shouldn't they be like?
I think they're
heavyweight champions.
Well, really? I think they're more like cruiserweight.
Yeah.
What they look like, ex-boxer.
He actually did some boxing.
Oh yeah, quite like it actually. But
with Boy George.
It's another story for another day. He was a good boxer actually, Boy George. Bexley Heath. Yeah, call out for Boy George.
True story.
He's a true, but he was a boxer. Him and his brother. But anyway,
Boy George.
I didn't box with him. He was in the same club.
Okay.
But what I was going to say, as a film, and we've talked about that, it is very, very well done. I thought all the actors nailed their scripts. They all looked very good. I think it was directed well. Like I said, the only challenging piece was the actual fight thing. Other than that, I thought it was a very, very good movie, and I'm going to give it 8.9 out of 10.
Okay, and I'm going to give it an A. It was solid, you know what I mean? It was exactly what it needed to be, and it was a good thing. And in fact, I think it leaves the door open to more sequels, and that's right where we're going to jump into the spoilers right now.
Just before that, I wanted to say, that isn't it amazing that Sylvester Stallone has been involved with two of the greatest, franchises, if you want. You've got Rambo and Rocky.
And then even to a lesser extent, but still made a ton of money too, is the Expendables.
Well, and the Expendables, latterly, And I never even thought about that one.
And Bugsy. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that was probably the weaker of all.
Yeah.
But he did a lot of great other box office films. But to do Rambo alone, would be most people's career. But he did Rocky and Rambo, and then the fact that he wrote Rocky was pretty amazing. And got it self-funded and did all that to make that happen. And there were some nice flashbacks to that, so we'll talk about that in the spoilers. Yeah, spoilers starting now. And if you haven't seen the movie, go ahead and click off, and you can check out our first fan reviews. Those are spoiler-free, and that's in the previous upload to this video. Check out what the first fans had to say about the movie. So now let's go into spoilers, and since we're going into spoilers too. The hard stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right, so Kivan, now we're free to talk about anything. Okay, well... The first thing that jumps out, one of the things that I hate about a serious film, which it was, it had a lot of really, really good... And prefacing, we both gave it very high score, but we're still going to pick it apart a little bit, that's what we do. Well, and the thing is, I can't stand the film when it goes into, you know, kind of almost like a dance routine in the middle of a film.
Yeah.
For God's sake, it's not real.
Does that every movie.
No, I know, and that's the only thing about the Rocky franchise that drives me insane. It's okay when he runs up and he goes, you know, and does all that, which they didn't do that, which I thought they should have done at the end of the film. But the part that drove me nuts when he was running down the street and all the quads and the bikes.
It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
It was just bullshit. Sorry, bullshit. But it was just awful. It would have spoiled the movie had it been a bad movie, but because it was such a good movie, I'm going to give it a pass on that one.
And you know what I'm going to say too? It just didn't have the same heart that the you know, Rocky 1 and 2 and 3 had in their training montages. It was lacking something, and I think what it was lacking, honestly, is that there wasn't a real villain in the movie.
No. That's what
you know, like I mean, Apollo Creed.
You didn't hate Tony. In the film.
And let's talk about, you know, Mr. T killed Mickey, right? Dolph Lundgren killed Apollo Creed, right?
Yeah.
This British guy, we heard that he did bad things to people we didn't care about, right?
Right.
He broke somebody's jaw. He's going to jail for something. And so he's guns or something, so he's a bad guy. But there's never a reason for us to hate him, and if there was, maybe we could care more about the progression of our character being able to fight him. Maybe if he got beat down first, you know, and then had to come back and beat him again.
Well, you said a beautiful thing off set, so we're going to cover it. You said what would have been a really good twist if it had actually gone after Michael Jordan's, not Michael Jordan. No, it is Michael B. Jordan, isn't it?
Okay.
Go after his girlfriend, and if he'd have been laying onto her, and then there would have been
there's that scene in the movie where a guy hits on his girlfriend or treats him with disrespect, but it's a random character rapper, and he gets in a little fist fight and goes to jail. And it could have been easily done that the British guy came to America a month or two before the fight to train, and at some point hits on his girlfriend, treats him with disrespect, does something, and they get in a fist fight out of the ring.
Yeah, I would have liked that. I think that was a great call, and I think that would have made it more fun. Because I think the trouble is, like you said, you didn't have enough buy-in to hating the guy, so you know there wasn't that bit of intensity. But otherwise, I mean, it was well done. I mean, there was enough. Actually did a great job of you know, showing the anger and being from Liverpool. He's got that, you know, tough guy accent, which really helped. But like you said, there wasn't enough animosity, I think.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, when you're talking about how they were in the ring, maybe it was more realistic for actual boxing fans. But as somebody who's not a boxing fan, doesn't know about boxing, but is a fan of movies and has seen all the Rocky movies, it seemed lackluster with these two physiques facing up, because when Sylvester Stallone would wear a shirt and a tie in the 1970s, he was still an imposing guy. He was still a big guy.
Yeah.
When Michael B. Jordan wears a suit and a tie, he looks like a regular Joe.
He did.
You cannot tell he has an ounce of muscle under him.
And he didn't.
Besides his face is trim, right?
Yeah.
And then this other guy, when he takes off his shirt, he's flab. So, you know, to see these two guys face off, it wasn't as cool, you know? I mean, it was like...
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, it just was a little lacking in that respect. And, you know, he's too pretty as well. I mean, he doesn't feel like a real tough boxer, you know? I mean, he went through, you know... We're in spoilers, so we can talk about it. So, he went through the care program, which... is tough. I mean, you know, I don't want to go into my history, but the reality is you got to be able to fight, and you lose your teeth, and you get your nose beat, and you know, you don't look a pretty boy. I mean, you're not going to be. The first thing they're going to do, pretty boy, they're going to mess you up. So it's kind of you know, I get the temper, and he did a beautiful job of acting that. And there was some moments when, you know, reflection for me as well, self-reflection, where he was coming back and he was really angry in the cell. That was true, and how I would have felt and how I would behave. So there was a lot of truth in the way he was acting, and he did a great job. And most American actors don't get that deep, I don't believe.
And our criticisms, I mean, still 8.9 and an 8.
Yeah.
And that goes to tell you how good the acting was and how good the story was.
It was superb.
You know, there was just a couple things we're picking apart. But one thing I want to cover too is the story itself, the movie itself.
Yeah.
In a way, it definitely was not rushing in any way. It felt like it was almost slow playing their cards.
Yeah.
It was kind of trucking along. And it almost felt like it was slow, but the thing is that every single thing that happened in this movie progressed the plot. And if you got up to go to the restroom for 2 minutes, you missed something.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was, I think, impressive. And that goes to... that's a great positive for the story.
Well, and I think the other thing that Sylvester Stallone, God bless him, I mean, I hope he's not sick, because he played the role of his life. I mean, goodness me, I was convinced he had, cancer.
He looked like shit at the end of the movie.
He really did. I mean, if he really is sick, I wish you well, man. But if not,
I think he is. I think that was pretty good.
No, I'm just to say it, because that was some awesome acting. For me to believe that was pretty intense. I mean, and the way he went up those stairs. I mean, the way he was walking, it was just awesome acting. You know, what a great actor. I love him, man. And there was a couple of, you mentioned the Huxtables. She was in there.
Claire Huxtable was there. She was cool. What about the love interest? Did you relate to her?
No, not really. No. I mean, I could see how they could kind of hit off, but it wasn't stunning or anything. But
yeah, there was definitely nothing memorable about it. I don't think it's going to be. You know, I mean, the first Rocky movie. By the time at the end, I mean, it's become a catchphrase. Adrian! Yeah, I mean...
Exactly. Can you remember her name in the show?
I have no idea what her name was. And that love story wasn't as... it wasn't as good because I think they were both too cool. They both had too much going on. And I know they tried to make her, like, going deaf. And, they tried to make them have their struggles. But they were both too cool. They weren't like real humans in terms of relatable struggles that the everyday person would have. I mean, Adrian worked at a pet shop. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
This woman was a performer, a musician.
There were some great lines in there when she was when the Rocky Balboa comes to pick up Michael, and then she said, "He's white."
Yeah, I mean, she was a good actress. It was a suitable love story. I mean, it's not gonna be memorable.
It didn't set the world on fire.
Exactly. And if she didn't show up for the next movie, nobody would notice. Really, they would just be like, they broke up.
Well, I'm talking about prime movies. Yeah, that's a nice lead in was about Polly.
Yeah,
what's up with that? Where's Paul?
And they did it again. They did it in the last Rocky movie where they killed off his wife, but they didn't do it on screen. Right. And I'm not sure what's going on with the actor. Do you know his name? The actor that plays Paulie? I don't know his name, but I know he's still alive. We looked him up before we started.
Is it Bert something? I want to say
whatever. But he is still alive. He's 75. I'm wondering maybe if he wasn't. Maybe he has.
Some issues.
Yeah, you know what happens when you're 75. You know what I mean? But like to kill off another character and not do it on camera.
I know.
It just seems like you're kind of wasting that opportunity. And I know with like the Adrian character, she's fully capable and fully and for some reason in the last movie they just started off with her being dead.
Yeah.
I don't know why they do that in this franchise.
Well, maybe it's just a dollar saver. Maybe she wants too much money.
But speaking of, I mean, this movie only cost $35 million to make.
Estimated $35 million, yeah.
I mean, they could have spent a lot more on this, and maybe they are cutting, price saving.
Well, $35 million is not going to give you A-liners, is it?
Yeah.
So already, and we know by the cast, I mean, they were good, but there was nobody in there that is going to demand 25 mil, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, obviously he's very smart with his money and as an executive producer, Sylvester Stallone has really worked out the best way to make money. And there were some very good choices with bringing it more into the modern day with music. And we were talking about the rap. And the new kind of nuances. It
got very urban.
Urban, and I think it was aimed at a younger crowd, which is awesome because that's where the money is. Let's be honest, I felt it wasn't quite out of Compton, but I mean it was definitely.
It was there sometimes, though. I mean, especially with the dirt bike scenes and stuff. I mean, they.
Well, and this is a great thing you were talking about. Let's just talk about that. I thought it was awesome. Why they were on dirt bikes? I had no real idea.
Oh well, he doesn't know. In a lot of big cities, you probably know this. In a lot of big cities, police officers aren't allowed to pursue dirt bikes in police chases. So a lot of people will ride dirt bikes as their get around vehicle and they don't have to have a license.
Right.
And if they have a DUI or something, they just buy a dirt bike and ride it around. And as soon as a cop gets behind you and turns on your lights, you just speed off, and they're not allowed to chase you.
Which is why it made sense now.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that going in. I kept thinking.
Okay, he's like, why the fuck are these guys on dirt bikes in a city?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And in quads, what?
Yeah.
I had no idea why that was going on. So that was good information, man. You are a mindful of information. So we gave our scores a little earlier on, but I give it 8.9. I know IMDb is going to give it 9 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, and I'm giving it a straight up A, even with our criticism. We just like to pick things apart, and the things that we're criticizing it on didn't take away from the whole experience as a Rocky movie. And I think it's fitting, and I think what they're trying to do with this, perhaps, depending on how much money they make, is maybe Creed 2.
Oh, no, there's Creed 2.
And then a 10-minute cameo from Stallone in the next one.
At least a Creed 2, maybe a Creed 3, and so on. I definitely think this is the new Rocky.
It's just too bad. This franchise, they kind of cut off a lot of options sometimes, and it was too bad in the last movie that, they made his son a wimp.
Yeah, because they could have come back and forth.
I know. I mean, they could have let that option open.
Yeah, I would
love to have seen Rocky's son come back in the next movie and fight Creed's son, but he's just too much of a wimp, and they established that fact in the last movie.
And maybe Huxtable's she trains Rocky's son.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Claire Huxtable trains Rocky's son, and then we have a feud. But anyways, I think we covered just about everything. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well,
I would say one more thing too.
Go ahead.
And speaking of the urban thing and the music. The music was, I think, great because it was very young, very urban, but it had a very city, like Seattle feel. It felt like West Coast.
West Coast, yeah.
Actually, Northwest. It did have like a Seattle sophisticated kind of urban thing going on, and I thought that was smart.
I thought it was well done, yeah. I mean, it's a soundtrack that I think will sell.
To
be honest. I think you were talking about you and mine buying it, and I think it's very, very cool. Yeah, I thought it was a great film, except for the just a little bit annoying in the fight scene and that stupid running down the street with all the quads
and their bodies.
On the bodies,
I wanted some.
And it's kind of weird for guys to say that, but we wanted imposing brutes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the.
Someone when you look at him, you go, "Oh shit, he's going to get his head kicked in."
I mean, the screen is 20 feet tall, or and 100 feet wide, and it's just got this diddly. I know the guy was like a real champion, but I would have preferred somebody looking more like The Rock or something that you could actually be like. Because when the two of them were together, as scrawny as the Creed character was, the two of them together, you'd be like, oh, he'd kick his flabby ass. And so it wasn't, to me, I didn't really get the whole, thing. I'm like, when
Tony, we're not having a dig at you, mate, because you're a damn good boxer, but it just wasn't. What we're trying to say is that, when you're a film watcher, you want a little bit more surreal.
Exactly. Mr. T was a crossover. He was like a wrestler first or whatever.
Dolph Lundgren. Yeah. We've talked about that. Big, imposing, tough guys. It would have looked more real, I think.
Yeah, but anyways, whatever. Subscribe to Blue Number Media. We do this every week. Check out the first fan reviews again, and do a lot of other videos too.
Yes,
a lot of stuff coming up. All right, Kevin. Well, you want to do the cheers?
Cheers.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Happy Thanksgiving.